Hello learners, how are you all doing? I hope you are safe and sound at your home. So today we'll be starting with the topic of science of class 6, motion and measurements of distances. We will be understanding about the concept of motion and various measurement units that we use to measure the distances. So before we start and go into the topic, let's have a look at a short video. Please listen to the video very carefully.
Teacher, here are sweets for the new car we just bought. Congratulations, Sanjay. Thank you for the sweets. So, you will now be traveling to school in your new car?
Yes, teacher. My father will drop me to school every morning in the new car and then I will take the school bus home.
Very good, Sanjay. We all travel every day to come to school. Some of us come by bus, some by the school bus, and some by their own cars. But have you thought about what was used by people earlier to travel from one place to another?
Students, in the earlier video, we have seen the explanation and the importance of transportation in nowadays. Now let us understand what are the various modes of transport that we use now and what were the various means of transport that were being used in the earlier days. Starting up with the modes of transportation that were used in early days. Have you ever wondered how people traveled in the earlier days? In the early days, people have always used animals to travel from one place to another. For example, bullock cart, horse cart, that is called as tonga as well, etc. Can you imagine using a bullock cart to come to school every day now? Obviously not. It's somewhere beyond our expectations, especially in cities. So we have seen how in the early times the animals were very important for being used as the mean of transportation. Now let's understand what are the various means of transportation in the today's era, that is in the modern time. Nowadays we have progressed, and with the help of various technologies and advancement, we have developed various transportation facilities, and hence we have learnt vehicle use, fuels and natural resources to create better modes of transportation. Hence we can see that now we have cars, buses, roads, railways, motorbike, aeroplane, ship, etc. to travel from one place to another. All these modes of transportation had made our life more comfortable, where we takes less time from moving from one place to the another. So we have seen how the time has changed and the mode of transportation has changed from previous time to now. So now, after understanding about the various means of transportations that were used earlier and nowadays, we need to know that what is the distance covered or what is the distance we have traveled by the transport or by walking. So to know that distance, the method that is being used is called as measurement. So now on, we are going to understand what is measurement.
Do you know how people know how much have they traveled or how much is the length of a leg of a chair? This is done by using a term called measurement.
So now let's understand what is a measurement. So if we have to define the term measurement, then we can say that measurement means comparing an unknown quantity with a known quantity. What is this known quantity? This known fixed quantity is called as a unit. So whenever we derive the result of this calculation, that is on calculating the distance, we get the calculation in two parts. The one part is called as number and the other part is the unit of measurement. So by this method or this process of measurement, we can easily calculate the distance of one place to another. For example, we can know the distance between the school and our house easily. So here we have understand the importance of measurement and various important components of measurements. So now, after understanding the definition of measurements and its various components, let's try to understand what are the various units of measurement. That is, to measure the distance, what are the units that we use to define the measurement.
Units of measurement. In the early days, units of measurements included the length of a foot, the distance of a step, and the width of a hand. However, these were difficult to maintain as the length of a foot would vary from person to person. To standardize the units, a metric system was put in place. This system is a standard unit of measurement, and the system of standard units of measurement used now is known as the International System of Units, or SI units. The SI unit of length is a meter. Each meter is divided into 100 equal divisions. These are called centimeters, or cm. Each centimeter has 10 equal divisions. These divisions are called millimeters, or mm. To measure distances, we use a term called kilometers, or km.
After understanding the concept of measurements and various units that we use to define the measurement of the distance, let's now understand how can we measure the length. So, for measuring the length of any object, we need an appropriate device or an instrument so that we can get the accurate results. For example, the measuring scale that a carpenter uses is entirely different than the one that is being used by a tailor. If both the measuring scales are interchanged, then we can imagine the amount of confusion it will cause, because both the measuring scales are meant to measure the entirely different objects. Measuring the length of a straight line or a straight object is easy, and we have seen how we can do it. But what if we have to measure the length of a curved line? To measure the length of a curved line, the standard measuring tape will not be enough. We need to use a different mechanism to arrive at the correct length of the curved line. So, for this, we need to use a thread, and we need to put that thread along the line of the curve. Use the thread from one end of the curve to the other end of the curve by stretching the thread along the line. After we are done, straighten the thread and measure its length. We will get the length of the curved line accurately. So, we have understood about the method how we can measure the length of any curved line and how we can measure the length of a straight line. After understanding the various modes of transportation, from where we can understand how one can move from one place to another, then we have understood about the concept of measurement. While moving from one place to another, what is the distance covered, how we can measure it. Then we have also understood the various units of measurement that can be used to give the details about the distance traveled. Then we have also seen how we can measure the length and how can we measure the length of a curved line. All this thing moving from one place to another, all this object moving from one place to another is nothing but a motion. So now we are trying to understand what are moving objects. What do we understand by the concept of moving object? After understanding the various aspects of measurements, let's clearly understand what is a moving object through the various examples that we can see around us. Various movements that we see around us through our eyes are like vehicle moving on the road, people walking across streets, birds flying in the sky, and so on. Not only this, we have the movements that goes in the space too, far away from our sight. that is a movement of Earth, and other planets also have the motion. And it's true, they are revolving around the sun. So we have thousands of such examples which gives us a clear picture of various movements on and around the earth. So we have seen various things that are moving from one place to another, maybe on earth or maybe around earth. Now let's understand this concept more clearly in the next slide.
No, motion is the change in position of an object with time. The change in its position can be determined through distance measurement.
We have seen the example of various moving objects around us, maybe on earth or around the earth. So we can say that anything that moves, or maybe walking of a man, flying of a bird, or moving of a car, or the celestial body in the space, all these are examples of motion, because there is the change of position of the object from one place to the another place. Therefore, these are termed as motion. Thus, we can understand that the change of the position of any object from one place to the another with respect to the time is termed as motion. So here we have seen the various objects which are moving and changing the position, and this change in position is with respect to the time, and hence we term these moving objects as the objects in motion. After understanding the concept of motion, that is the moving of object, changing of the position of the object from one place to another with respect to time, is called as motion. Now let us understand what are the types of motion. How can we classify the motion depending upon the movement or change of the position of the object? So there are majorly three types of motions: rectilinear motion, circular motion, and periodic motion. Let's understand about each of them in detail.
You may have observed the motion of a vehicle on a straight road, march past of soldiers in parade, or the falling of a stone. What kind of motion is this?
So in the above video we have seen some examples like moving of a car on a road, a march passing parade, or a falling stone from a height. All these movements, all these changing of positions of the object from one place to another, we see that the objects are moving along a straight line. Therefore, this type of motion or this type of moving of the object, changing the position of the object from one place to another in a straight line, is termed as a rectilinear motion. So when we tie a stone to a thread and we whirl it around over our head, we see that the stone moves along a circular path. In this motion, the distance of the stone from your hand remains the same, right? So this type of motion is called as circular motion. Hence we can say the motion where the object moves in the circular path and the distance of the object remains same from the center is termed as circular motion.
In some cases, an object repeats its motion after some time. This type of motion is called periodic motion. Take the stone tied with a string and hang it up. Now, hold the string in your hand and let the stone hang from it. Pull the stone to one side with the other hand and let it go. This is a pendulum, something that will help us understand about periodic motion. Now, the motion of a pendulum, motion of a child on a swing, strings of a guitar are all examples of periodic motion where an object repeats its motion after a fixed interval of time.
That's all for the day. So today we have learned about measurements, various units of measurements, and also about the motions that we come across in our day-to-day life. I hope you might have enjoyed this session, and till we meet next, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.